Are you bloated after every meal? Are you constipated one day and like the total opposite the next, like having diarrhea, loose stools? Maybe you're anxious in a way that feels different from before you had your baby. Are you struggling to lose weight even though you were eating well? You're working out. Mama, what if I told you that all four of those things could all be connected and that the connection is your gut? Today, we are talking all about gut health, what actually works, what is just hype, and why your microbiome might be the missing piece of your postpartum recovery puzzle. Enjoy today's episode. Feeling exhausted, overwhelmed, or like you've lost yourself in the postpartum chaos? Whether you're 4 weeks postpartum, 2 years in, or done having babies, you deserve to feel like yourself again. Hey mama, I'm Val, a functional sports dietitian, postpartum fitness coach, and a mama who understands exactly what you're going through. Welcome to the Strong and Nourished Mama podcast, where you'll find simple, science-backed strategies to heal your core, rebuild strength, and restore your energy without the overwhelm. If you're ready to go from depleted to strong, nourished, and unstoppable, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Hey, and welcome back to the Strong and Nourished Mama podcast. I am Val, your sports dietitian, functional medicine practitioner, strength coach, and fellow mama who totally geeks out on all things gut health. If you are new here, hey, welcome. Go back and listen to episode 94 and 95 when you are done with this one, because we have been on a really good roll this April, covering the root causes of mom fatigue. And today we are adding another piece to that puzzle. And if you have been here for a while, you know I love this topic. I talk about gut health all the time, so let's get into it. Before we dive in, if this episode resonates with you today, I want you to share it with one mama who has been complaining about bloating, digestion issues, or just feeling off since having her baby, whether it was 6 months ago or 6 years ago. Just text her the link. That is it. The podcast is on all podcast platforms, and you could generally change how she feels. And if you have not left us a review on Apple Podcasts yet, it literally takes 30 seconds. You scroll all the way down, leave a review. It helps other moms find the show. Okay, gut health. Let's talk about it. I love talking about it. And I probably talk about gut health and bowel movements every single day. My husband's like, can we stop talking about poop? And your bowel movements, which I've talked about in previous episodes, your bowel movements, it's a vital sign. And this is going to give us so much information. Now, before we dive into today's episode and content, and I'm telling you all the juicy stuff, I want to tell you about a mom that I have worked with. And she came in about 10 months postpartum. And on paper, she was doing all of the things right. She was eating pretty well. She was getting in her veggies. She was having some balanced meals. She had gotten back into working out and getting back into her routine, especially now that she was back at work. And she was trying to prioritize sleep as best as she could, as best as you can when you're a mom of a 10-month-old. But she felt terrible in a way she could not quite explain. She was bloated after almost every meal. Even meals that felt healthy. Like, why am I getting bloated if this is a healthy meal? What's going on? She was constipated more often than not. And when things did move, they were not what they should be. And she was having bowel movements every day, but when we really dove into it and assessed everything when we were working together, even though she was having daily bowel movements, she was still constipated. And this is a big one that I see. She had gained some weight postpartum, and despite her best efforts, it was not budging. She could not figure out why, what was going on. And she had developed this low-grade anxiety that she had never really experienced before having her baby. It wasn't like panic attacks. It was just the constant hum of worry and unease that was totally new for her. And of course, as a new mom in that first year, that's definitely something that I hear a lot of. She had been to her OB. She had been to her primary care doctor. She had been told that these things were normal postpartum. You're just a mom. This is normal. It's fine. Just give it time. She had been offered antidepressants for the anxiety. Nobody had asked her about her gut. When she came to me, the first thing I asked about was her digestion and her nutrition, of course, in detail. Like, give me all the details and let's really assess what's going on here. And what we uncovered was a gut microbiome that had been significantly disrupted, which makes sense, especially after being pregnant and giving birth and breastfeeding and everything that goes into being a mom. She had been on antibiotics during labor. She had a C-section. She had been under enormous stress. She was not eating enough fiber. She basically cut out all fermented foods because she was afraid that they would affect her milk supply, or she, you just totally forgot about them, which they don't affect your milk supply. Okay, fermented foods don't. We're going to talk about that more later. So her gut was struggling. And because of the gut-brain connection, which this is something that I touched more on in previous episodes, and I definitely talked about the gut-weight connection in episode 68. So go back and listen to that if you have not. And then in episode 6 and 7, I really talked about constipation and 5 simple ways to get things moving again. So if you haven't listened to those episodes after this one, go binge on those. So her struggle was showing up as anxiety, weight resistance, bloating, irregular digestion, all at once. Now, within 8 weeks of addressing her gut health foundations with no expensive testing, I want to add, no complicated protocols, just targeted food changes and the right support for her gut when it comes to, of course, not just food and prebiotics and probiotics, but the whole system of foundations. So we're looking at exercise, we're looking at sleep, we're looking at stress. And she felt a completely different person. She was like, oh my gosh, like bowel movements feel better. I feel like I'm digesting my food better. I have more energy. I'm sleeping better. So it affected every single area of her life. And the bloating reduced significantly. Bowel movements were every day, it's continuing, but they were more consistent where they should be on that Bristol stool chart. Her digestion was regulated. Anxiety started to lift. And she finally started to see movement on the scale, which was happy for her. She was really happy about that. Her gut was not the only piece of the puzzle, but it was a big one that nobody had even thought to look at or bring up or talk about. It wasn't even on her mind or anyone else's mind. And so that's what we're really going to dive into today. Let's talk about your gut, specifically your microbiome, what actually happens to it during and after pregnancy, because I think understanding why your gut changed is just as important as knowing what to do about it. And this is something that we don't get a lot of information on as moms. So what is the microbiome? Why does it matter? You've probably seen this on social media. You probably heard about leaky gut, intestinal permeability, stool tests. What's going on with it? Let's dive in. Your gut microbiome is the collection of trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms living in your digestive tract. Now, before you say, ew, gross, viruses, parasites, bacteria, isn't that bad? No, these microorganisms are not just passengers. They are actively involved in your digestion, your immune function, your hormone metabolism, your mood, your energy production, and of course, yes, your weight. They're involved in everything. And you can literally say that we are more microbe than we are human. Now, we're going to be talking about the gut microbiome today. As I've mentioned in previous episodes, there are microbiomes all over throughout the body, okay? On the skin, in the nose, in the nasal passages, in your mouth, in your lungs, in your vagina, in your uterus, in your bladder, everywhere, okay? Now, the largest microbiome is going to be the gut microbiome. And that's going to be the collection of the trillions of bacteria and fungi and other microorganisms, and they all work in unison. So when your microbiome is diverse and balanced, meaning that you have a good variety of beneficial bacteria, your body runs really, really well. I like to compare this to the ecosystem of a rainforest. If one species in that rainforest died off, it's going to affect every other species within the rainforest, and the ecosystem is therefore going to start to dwindle down, and it's going to have a negative impact on everything, the plants, the animal, everything within that ecosystem. So I want you to think of your gut microbiome in the same way. When it is disrupted, meaning certain bacteria overgrow, these beneficial strains, the good guys, they become depleted. They're starved, or diversity is lost, and you start to see symptoms like the one that my patient had that I mentioned earlier. You start to see, of course, gastrointestinal symptoms, bloating, constipation, irregular digestion, reflux, and then maybe you start to notice weight resistance, low mood, brain fog, even immune issues like getting sick all the time. And of course, when all of that is going on and we have that low microbial diversity, there's some inflammation going on, more than likely that we may start to have food sensitivities where we're reacting to foods that we used to not have any issues digesting or processing. And so those types of symptoms matter. So it's not just symptoms related to the gut, it's going to be systemic symptoms throughout the entire body. So this is not a new concept. I touched on the gut-weight connection back in episode 68, and then again in episode 6 and 7 when I talked about constipation. But today I want to give you the full picture of what disrupts your gut postpartum and what you can actually do about it, because that's what's going to be super helpful. So what actually happens to your gut during and after pregnancy? Let's dive into this. First, your microbiome actually shifts during pregnancy and on purpose, okay? Everything shifts during pregnancy, and it's because you are growing a human. Your body changes the composition of your gut bacteria to support immune tolerance. Essentially, really what this is doing is just helping your immune system not reject the baby, right? It's supporting the immune system in this process of you growing your baby, which again, it's remarkable and it's amazing. But it also means that your microbiome comes out of pregnancy, like at the end of pregnancy, after you deliver, it's in a totally different state than when you went into get that pregnancy, right? And also, we have to think about the foods that we're eating during pregnancy. So maybe you had food aversions, maybe you had nausea, maybe you weren't eating foods that you normally would eat. You're like, and then you have high progesterone, of course, and so that's decreasing motility within the gut. And so that's definitely going to negatively impact our gut microbiome as well. Now, second, birth itself is a major microbiome event. If you had a vaginal birth, your baby was colonized with your gut bacteria as they pass through the birth canal, which is so cool. Lots of lactobacillus within the vaginal canal. And so when your baby is born vaginally, they're getting exposure to those microbes. And that is one of the first gifts you actually give your baby, which is super cool. But for you, especially if you had antibiotics like me during labor, which is very common, especially if you have strep B or you have a C-section or a prolonged labor, your microbiome took a significant hit. And it's not that any of those things are bad, right? Like you have to have a C-section, you have to have a C-section. If you have group B strep and you need antibiotics, like that's what we have to do. Now, antibiotics, they don't discriminate, okay? So antibiotics are going to kill the bad guys, but they are also going to wipe out the good, beneficial microbes and bacteria. Well, bacteria, because it's an antibiotic. That's something important that we have to remember. Now, if you had a C-section, research shows that the microbiome disruption can be even more significant because your body skipped the vaginal birth colonization process. And often it involves antibiotics, of course, right? And so your baby is still exposed to microbes through the skin, but it doesn't mean that anything is wrong. It just means that your gut needs more intentional support postpartum, just like your pelvic floor does. Even if you have a C-section, your pelvic floor needs that support. Now, the fourth thing is stress. And I don't think I need to explain to a new mom or a mom of littles and kids of any age, really, why stress levels postpartum are elevated. Like there's a lot going on. That shit is stressful, okay? Chronic stress significantly alters the gut bacterial composition and it increases intestinal permeability, which is, we're gonna talk about leaky gut. And so the stress definitely has a big role. We can't avoid it. There's of course good stress, there's that not so good stress, but how can we kind of manage it to be able to support our gut? Because this is connected through the superhighway known as the vagus nerve. And so when you have that gut feeling, you're nervous or you're excited, that's of course going to impact what you feel in your gut, which is the enteric nervous system, the second brain. And that's also going to impact motility and of course inflammation within the gut. So let's dive into leaky gut because you probably heard this. You probably seen it on social media. It has become like a wellness buzzword, but the underlying concept is real. And I want to dive into this. And it has a clinical name, intestinal permeability. Here's what it means in plain English. Your gut lining is essentially this barrier. It's a barrier from the outside world. It's a good barrier. It's a strong barrier, and it's a very selective one that decides what gets absorbed into your bloodstream inside the body and what stays in your digestive tract. When that barrier is healthy and strong and intact, it lets only what needs to come in nutrients, and then it keeps pathogens and undigested food particles and toxins out. It's so cool. Now, when that barrier becomes damaged or more permeable than it should be, and it can be from stress, it can be from antibiotic use, it can be from a low fiber diet, it can be from chronic inflammation, things start to sneak through and get through that should not get through. Your immune system is going to see these particles. It's going to mount a response, and that response is going to create inflammation. So it may be undigested food particles. What is that? Flag it. So now when you're eating that food, your immune system sees it and it's going to start to flag it when it shouldn't. Or maybe it's other things that are getting into the bloodstream that shouldn't, so that your immune system is kind of revving up to be able to fight off those toxins or the bad guys that shouldn't be able to get in. And in that process, your intestinal lining starts to if you look it up online and see a picture, you'll see with leaky gut and intestinal permeability, the mucus layers eaten up, it's gone, and the cells look very sad and red and inflamed. And that's not what we want. And so, of course, this inflammation is going to show up as different symptoms: bloating, food sensitivities, joint pain, brain fog, skin issues. That is a big one. Hormone issues, another big one. Low energy, and so much more. So does this mean that everyone with bloating has leaky gut? No, because there could be food intolerances where digestion is just a little off and we need some support there. But it doesn't mean that everyone who has bloating has leaky gut. But for postpartum moms who have been through the combination of pregnancy, hormones, of course, really high hormones, antibiotics, a major physical event like birth, holy crap, chronic stress, sleep deprivation, and potentially underfueling, the conditions for increased intestinal permeability are absolutely there. So when I'm talking to someone and they're telling me what's going on, they're telling me their symptoms, they're telling me about their sleep, their stress, their nutrition, their movement, without running a expensive $400-500 stool test, I can more than likely say, hey, you know what? We probably have some intestinal permeability going on. Let's try X, Y, and Z. Let's look at a colon transit time. Let's see what's going on. Start there. And later, if we need to do a stool test analysis, we totally have that option. But that's not something that I start with, because that's expensive. That shit's expensive, and I could totally help you more than likely before having you spend all of that money. So the good news is your gut lining has an incredible ability to repair itself. Every single time you eat, your gut is able to alter and change the microbes and heal that gut lining. And that is actually so cool. And that's what we need. And it starts with food. So let's talk about it. And this is where I spend most of our time in sessions and in one-on-ones, because this is something that you can actually start to implement and practice and start doing today. And so that's why I want to talk about it on this episode. I want to be really clear with you about my philosophy. Food comes first, always. Always, before supplements, before testing, before protocols. Your gut is incredibly responsive to what you feed it, what you don't feed it, and the changes that you make with food alone are significant. Now, testing, supplements, protocol, they all have a place. You know, I love my supplements. I have a supplement stack that I love it so much. But I can't just rely on all those supplements. I have to make sure I have, again, those foundations first. So the number one thing that I see missing in postpartum moms in our diet is fiber. And I don't need you to be eating 40 plus grams of fiber a day and tracking every single gram and kind of getting, a little crazy about it, because it's easy to do. If you get 40 grams, great, awesome. But if we're starting at 15 grams, which most Americans are getting 15 grams of fiber a day, let's just try to get 20 grams of fiber. And how can we implement that in a way that's easy, in a way that's actually yummy and delicious, and something that our toddlers and our families are going to like? So most moms, we're eating a lot of processed and convenience foods. We're busy, we're tired, we have a lot going on. And so I completely understand this because you're exhausted. You're in survival mode and that shit is real. And those foods are very low in fiber and of course nutrients. Now, do they have a place, convenience foods? Hell yeah, I love it. And I have convenience foods and of course I have processed foods too. It's not like my diet is like this perfect way of eating. It's all about balance. Now, let's dive into fiber. Fiber is definitely getting the press, the media that it deserves. I always tell my clients plants and protein, like why are we just trying to do one or the other? Let's try to incorporate both. And of course, I've talked about that on the show before. But fiber comes from any plant food, okay? And fiber feeds your beneficial gut bacteria. Without fiber, they literally starve and your gut diversity drops. So think of that rainforest, think of that ecosystem, the animals, the plant, everything in there. If things just start to die off, that rainforest is going to suffer and it's going to die and everything else is going to die, right? And that's not what we want. So with fiber, they thrive and they produce what's called short chain fatty acids. And these short chain fatty acids nourish your gut lining and they reduce inflammation, not only in the gut, but systemically as well. Butyrate, one of the short chain fatty acids, can actually cross the blood-brain barrier, decreasing that inflammation within the brain. And it's so cool. Now, practical fiber sources that are easy for busy moms. Oats. You guys know, I love my overnight oats. I get like 40 to 50 grams of protein in there and I'm getting like 12 grams of fiber. And that's what most Americans are getting in a day. And I'm getting that at breakfast. How cool is that? And I pack it in a mason jar. It's easy, it's yummy, it's delicious. Pack it and go. Beans and lentils, that's another option that you can pair and you can make soups and stews, make bowls, whatever you want out of them. Though that's part of your legume family. Berries are awesome. 1 cup of raspberries has 10 grams of fiber. And moms, you know, you're buying like 1 million pounds of berries every week. It seems like all your money goes to berries for your little ones. You're like, what is happening? Eat the berries with them, okay? Eat the berries with them. And it can be fresh, they can be frozen, whatever works for you. But raspberries, your blueberries, your blackberries, the different colors, they're going to have different fibers too. So even if it's part of the same family, like bell peppers, the different colors are going to give you different phytochemicals and different fibers. Apples, pears, so your fruits, avocado, your broccoli, your bell peppers, celery, cucumbers, anything in that non-starchy, low-carb family, leafy greens, sweet potatoes, purple potatoes, your red potatoes, your white potatoes, chia seeds, ground flaxseed, other nuts and seeds. So it's not complicated. It's just, okay, how many plant foods am I getting in a day? Let's count them. Okay, I'm getting 3 plant foods. I had 3 plant foods today. Okay. That's kind of sad, but you know what? That's okay. The goal is to get to 4. Tomorrow, I'm going to get 4. I literally have this conversation with myself sometimes. I'm like, whoa, yesterday I had like no plant foods, or yesterday I had like no protein. Okay, tomorrow I'm going to do better, right? Versus the total opposite where you're like, man, I suck. I can't do this. I'm just going to give up. Like, let's create awareness. Let's make it fun. And you know what? The next time you eat, the next meal you have, whether you're preparing it or you're going out, try to add in some of those plant foods. So we don't have to make it complicated. They're just foods that you can eat regularly and start to pair in. And you may have to write it down to kind of remember, like, oh yeah, man, I totally forgot about butternut squash. Geez, I love butternut squash. I hate cutting butternut squash. So maybe I'll buy it pre-chopped and roast it and add it to my meals. So that's why we want fiber. So that's coming from any plant food, okay? Now, let's talk about prebiotics. Prebiotics are feeding the good guys. They are specific types of fibers. This is a specific fiber that feeds beneficial microbes, beneficial bacteria in the gut. I want you to think of them as fertilizer for your microbiome. So prebiotics are really important. Now, some foods are going to be naturally high in prebiotics, including garlic, onions, leeks, asparagus, bananas, especially slightly underripe, like the green bananas, oats, ground flaxseed. Yes, cool. So we're getting, of course, we're getting soluble, we're getting insoluble, we're getting resistant. We're getting all of these different types of fiber in these plant foods throughout the day. Awesome. And there's also supplementation. And so depending on your symptoms, depending what's going on, I may recommend a certain prebiotic fiber for you to start with. So I wouldn't just go out and buy any type of fiber. So for example, if you're constipated, you're chronically constipated, especially even if you have daily bowel movements. I see this every single week, you guys. People come in, they tell me their symptoms. I do it. I say, hey, let's do a colon transit time test, assessing how long it takes who to go from mouth to toilet. And they're like, Val, I'm pooping every day. And I said, let's just do it. Okay. Let's just roll it out. They come back, they're constipated. They're not fully evacuating everything out in a 24-hour time frame. It's 3 days, it's 4 days, it's a week, it's 2 weeks. So if that's going on, and then you just go out and buy psyllium husk and start taking a bunch of psyllium husk, that can actually make constipation worse. Psyllium husk is great. I love it. It's something that I recommend, but it really depends on what's going on with you, your symptoms, and everything else. So I don't want you to just go out and buy something willy-nilly. I don't want you to buy something that you see on TikTok. Please, no. We want to make sure that our supplements are third-party tested, meaning that another company is coming in, they're testing the supplement, making sure that it has everything that the brand is saying at the dose that it's saying and nothing else, right? We want to make sure that we're getting those brands. And that's something that I offer to my clients in my full script supplement dispensary, because that's important. You want to make sure you're not taking a supplement that has all this lead or all this other crap in it, or you think it's a good supplement and then you look at it and it's like, this fiber isn't even a therapeutic dose. It's not going to do anything. You would have to take way more, right? So I don't want you to waste your time. I don't want you to waste your money. You don't need a prebiotic supplement, but it can definitely be supportive, and it's something that I add into my lifestyle to be able to support my gut as well. Now, probiotics, let's talk about it. What actually works? What is the hype? There is so much hype. Okay. The probiotic market is absolutely flooded with products, and most of them are frankly not worth your money. So I went to what's called Expo West in March. It was so cool. If you follow me on Instagram, I posted about it, I shared about it, and it was so much fun, and I'm so glad I went. And there was one company there, I can't even remember the name, to be honest. It was one company, and they were talking about vaginal flora and women's health and all of that. And I was like, oh, cool. So I go and I look at the product, and there's no strains in there. There's no strains. And people get very confused with what a strain it actually is. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I mentioned it to the people working there. I'm like, this doesn't have any strains. And they're like, yeah, it does. I'm like, no, it doesn't. I was trying to they didn't understand. So it was, anyways, there are so many products on the market. That's what I'm getting at. There are so many products on the market that look fun, that look sexy, that look cool. And ooh, I want that. And that so-and-so influencer is taking it and improved their health. Now they're getting paid more than likely. So they're probably going to say whatever. But if it doesn't have a strain, we don't want to waste our money on it. Not at all. And with a probiotic, it's very strain specific. Okay, so here's what the research actually supports. Specific strains of probiotics have been studied for specific outcomes. If you have anxiety, take this strain. If you have constipation, take this strain. If you have been on antibiotics, take this different strain. If you want to prevent UTIs and support the vaginal flora, take these strains. Okay, Lactobacillus, Bifidobacterium, those are genuses, however you say it. Okay, the strain is totally different. And that's what I really like to educate moms and people on, okay? Because that is what is research and what's going to help with immune function and mood and all of the things that I said. So what I look for in a probiotic is, one, does it have a strain? Two, is that strain, does it have research to support what we need, right? That's important, because if I've mentioned this before, if I need a plumber and an electrician shows up, that's cool, awesome, but dude ain't gonna fix my plumbing, that's for sure, right? So it's not helpful. And again, it's a waste of your money. Same with other supplements. We want to make sure they're third-party tested and go through that process as well. So are probiotics necessary for everyone? No, definitely not, but they're definitely going to be beneficial. So it's a live microbe. It comes in, it does the specific job, and then once you stop taking it, that's it. So it's not like you take a probiotic and you replenish your gut microbes or you replenish an entire strain. That's not how it works. So if someone tells you that, just know that ain't true, okay? Now, probiotics and fermented foods are safe while breastfeeding, during pregnancy. We want to make sure that we're taking the right one. And sometimes providers will just say, go take a probiotic if you've been on antibiotics. Again, you want to take the right strain for the right job. Fermented foods are going to contain live and active microbes. We don't know how much. We don't know the exact strain. They're called colonic foods. Some people will call them probiotic foods. But those are going to also be helpful. So think kimchi, think sauerkraut, think yogurt, think kefir. I had strep B. And so during labor, I was pumped with a lot of antibiotics, and I knew that I was going to be having to do that. So before then, leading up to labor, and then of course after, I made sure that I had the right probiotics to be able to support that because I was on antibiotics. And then of course, with being pregnant and going through labor and birth and postpartum, I wanted to have that extra support for my gut as well. So let's dive into fermented foods a little bit. They are one of the most powerful and underrated gut health tools, and they are literally just food that you can top and mix in, and they're amazing. So the foods that I mentioned, yogurt with live cultures, kefir, kimchi, sauerkraut, miso, tempeh, but these foods contain live beneficial bacteria, and they are going to contribute to that diversity. So it is something that we can add in to our diet. Start small if you are not used to eating them. So a spoonful of sauerkraut with a dinner, a small serving of kefir in a smoothie. Your gut needs time. Just like with fiber and with prebiotics, your gut needs time to adjust to these colonic foods. And so too much, too fast can, of course, cause some temporary bloating or just digestion upset. It may not feel good, right? Because we're not used to digesting those foods. Now, if intestinal permeability is a concern, and for most postpartum moms, it is a concern, certain foods actively support the gut lining to help repair it. Think bone broth. Ooh, bone broth is amazing. It's going to contain collagen or the nutrients be able to create collagen. It's going to contain glutamine and other amino acids, and it's going to help nourish the gut lining directly. And that can be something that you throw in the crock pot with chicken. Maybe you're making like a soup or a stew. Bone broth is great. Maybe you make your own bone broth. That's awesome. Omega-3 rich foods like your salmon, your sardines, your walnuts, your flaxseed, your plant sources of your omegas. It's a different omega than your DHA and EPA. And so a little bit is going to convert to those, but it's still good to get those plant foods in variety. But of course, those animal foods like your salmon, your sardines, you can add in, and that's going to help reduce not only gut inflammation, but inflammation in general. Zinc-rich foods like beef, pumpkin seeds, eggs, that's going to support the gut lining integrity. So we're thinking nutrients that are going to support, of course, the gut, but everything else. And so it's so cool how everything works together when we can start to implement and put these foods together as one, creating a balanced diet versus just taking like a million supplements. Now, colorful vegetables, fruit, and other plant foods are going to provide those polyphenols, those phytochemicals that feed beneficial bacteria and reduce that inflammation. So it's not this complicated protocol. It's just eating a varied whole food diet with an emphasis on fiber, fermented foods, and anti-inflammatory sources as best as we can, right? It's not perfect. That doesn't exist. It's just how can we start to incorporate these foods, and then it's going to get easier and easier, and it's something that the entire family enjoys. So this is your gut health foundation. Now, I want to address something because I know some of you are going to go down a gut health rabbit hole after this episode, and you're going to start seeing like ads for stool testing and GI map testing and comprehensive stool analysis like everywhere. It's kind of crazy how that works. Now, the GI map is a functional stool test that can give incredible detailed information. Okay, gives detailed information about your gut microbiome, some gut pathogens, digestive enzyme function, intestinal permeability markers, and more. And it can be a useful clinical tool. And yes, it is something that I can run and walk you through. But here's my honest clinical opinion. It is not where we start. No way, Jose. It is expensive. Like I said, $400, $500 or more. And in most cases, especially postpartum moms, right? Like we know the gut's disrupted. We know that. You just went through a lot. Tell me about your bowel movements. Tell me about your stress. Tell me about your sleep and your diet. Girlfriend, you do not need this expensive test right now. And so for postpartum moms who have not yet made those foundational food and lifestyle changes, the information you get from a GI map before doing the basics is premature. It's going to be like, yeah, no duh, right? No duh. I had a client And she did with someone else a GI map before meeting with them. And then she came and talked to me, and I was like, yeah, it sounds like you're constipated. It sounds like you're constipated. And this was before she got her GI map results back. And she does the colon transit test and we talk through things, and I walk her through things. I said, hey, try this. And then the test finally comes back, the results, and everything's disrupted. She has dysbiosis, she has intestinal permeability, and then it comes back, she's severely constipated. And I'm like, yep, yeah. So it makes sense why, like, I would expect this on the GI map, on the stool analysis test. And so what we want to focus on is making the changes. You see how your body responds, and then if symptoms are still persisting and we need more information and we're like, hey, what is really going on here? This is when that advanced testing may be super valuable and helpful, but it's not something that we start with. This is also something that I add in as an option for clients inside the Strong, Nourished, and Energized Mom Method, my 8-week group coaching program, when we have built the foundation and need to dig deeper, of course, with any type of other tests as well. Because doing the testing without the context of the foundational work, it leads to expensive protocols and supplements and testing that are not actually necessary, right? So I don't want you to have to spend all this money and stress over things that we could have started to work on a lot sooner. So start with food, start with the basics, see what shifts. And if you want support building that foundation, that is exactly what my 8-week group coaching program is for. The one thing I will say about lab testing for gut health in the context of the functional lab review that I talked about last week, we can look at inflammatory markers like CRP, homocysteine, that's going to be in serum, in blood, and other indicators that can give you useful information about what is happening systemically throughout the body without or even before running a GI map, because those basic panels that are a lot cheaper are going to give us so much information before we have to even go the GI map route. So if you have existing labs or you want to order a foundational panel, depending on what's going on for you, that is a great starting point. You can book yours now at wellnessbyval.com/labs. And just know that I am holding very limited openings for this. So if this is something you're interested in, I have very limited space for these one-on-ones. So head to wellnessbyval.com/labs to be able to get more information and to be able to book your one-on-one. So let's bring it all home. Here is what we covered today. Your gut microbiome is the foundation of so much more than just digestion. It affects your weight, your mood, your energy, your immune function, your hormone balance, pregnancy, birth, antibiotics, stress, underfueling, all disrupt your microbiome postpartum. And that disruption, it's going to show up as bloating, irregular digestion, anxiety, weight resistance, and so much more. Leaky gut or intestinal permeability, it is real, it is treatable primarily through our food and our lifestyle. Now, what actually works? Fiber from plant foods, prebiotics, probiotics with the actual studied strains, not just some random one on the market, fermented foods, and anti-inflammatory whole foods. Food first, always. And of course, you start low and you slowly increase. As you increase your fiber, you definitely have to increase your fluids as well to move everything through. Now, what is hype? Expensive probiotic supplements with no research behind them, or if they don't even have the strain, or they're saying it's a prebiotic and a probiotic together, but the prebiotic dose is like absolutely nothing. It's not going to do anything. GI maps as a first step before foundational changes, and eliminating entire food groups in the name of gut health. Like, no, thank you. Your action step this week, mama. I want you to add one fermented food to your day. And this is a challenge for me too. I just got fermented beets, and I'm so excited because I'm not a big beet fan. They're very earthy, but I want to like beets. And so I got fermented beets because I typically like those better than just like plain or roasted beets. So I'm on this journey with you. So your homework this week, add one fermented food to your day. Just one. Can be a spoonful of sauerkraut with dinner, a serving of yogurt with live cultures at breakfast, a small glass of kefir in your smoothie. Start there. Your gut is going to thank you. And if you want a full plan, gut health, nutrition, movement, energy, hormones, all built around real mom life, that is the Strong, Nourished, and Energized Mom Method. That's exactly what we do in this 8-week group coaching program. 8 weeks, step by step with me. Head to wellnessbyval.com/program. That link is always going to be in the show notes. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today, Mama. Gut health is one of my favorite topics. I can talk about it all day, every day. And I hope this episode gave you some real clarity amid all of the noise that is out there, especially on social media. If this resonated, please share it, text it to a mama friend who has been dealing with bloating or digestive issues since having her baby, whether it's been 6 weeks or 6+ years. Tag me on Instagram at wellnessbyval_. I'm always going to share your stories, and I love seeing that, and I love the support. Next Monday, we have an incredible guest joining me, a pediatrician and registered dietitian who is going to blow your mind with how she thinks about nutrition for both moms and little ones. You do not want to miss that one, so make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. Make sure you are on my email list at wellnessbyval.com/insider so that you can get all of this information and get it in your inbox and listen to it right away. And we want to make sure that it's on your feed on Monday morning. All right, I will see you then. Take care of yourself. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Stay strong, stay nourished. Hey Mama, I hope you loved today's episode. If you got something out of it or simply enjoyed listening, would you please take 30 seconds to share it with another mom who could use the support? And if you haven't yet, I would be so grateful if you could leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you tune in. It truly means the world to me, and it helps the show reach more amazing moms like you. All right, time to go chase my toddler around. Stay strong and nourished, and I'll be back on Monday with another episode. Talk soon.